I'm going to use my new gavel to get the meeting going at 6:04. We have some changes to the agenda, minor. Dan, would you?
Yeah, I'd like, hey, Bram, we're started. I'd like to move that we change the agenda in two ways. One, I'd like to add an item to the emergency manager pertaining to an accessibility request and AmeriCorps. And I'd like to add that after the road commissioners report on the agenda. Secondly, we have warned an executive session. The reason given in the previous agenda was not correct. The correct reading for the executive session is executive session pursuant to 1 VSA 313A1B to consider labor relations with employees.
Okay. Yep, thank you.
Yeah.
Let me just make a note of that too. Announcements, next week, we are going to be meeting at the town office because this hall is going to be used by a theater group for the week. So we won't be here. We'll be at the town office in the upstairs meeting room. Patty, our other board member, is on her way, but she's held up. But I expect she'll be here. I don't have any other announcements. Did you have an announcement? Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Yeah.
very briefly, just to let you know, the website now has a page for the Board of Abatement.
Oh, great.
Worked with our webmaster to get that up. And it explains who makes up the board, et cetera, and it has posted the minutes from the abatement sessions this summer that are flood related.
Great. So people can access that.
You can access that now, yeah. And the second announcement would be just to, I thought it would be important for folks to know that we did get a visit on Friday
Yes.
from, it was set up by Pat Moulton, the flood recovery officer in Vermont, and it included a delegation from the White House, the director of long-term community recovery and rebuilding, and executive officer of the president, Brendan Dudley, Grace Lee, director interagency coordination, FEMA Office of Responsible Recovery, Jared Devine, the FEMA Region 1 Deputy Regional Administrator, Allison Lawrence, the FEMA Disaster Recovery Officer currently assigned to Vermont, Doug Farnham, Vermont's Chief Recovery Officer, Eric Philthorne from the Recovery Office, and Pat. And they were on a tour of Barry City, Plainfield, and Johnson. They got here around 11:15, but Positive Pie wasn't open yet, so they wandered down to Heartbreak Hotel and Mill Street Bridge, and then helped Plainfield's economy by having lunch at Positive Pie, joined by Josh and I at 11:30, and then about 45 minutes later by Michael Billingsley and Karen Hatcher. We probably spent another 15 to 20 minutes and then did a walking tour basically of the large downtown block. And then they took off for Johnson. And Pat said in her email, I believe it was time well spent. They have a far better understanding of the challenges of our Vermont cities and towns are experiencing. They saw firsthand what we're dealing with and heard our needs. And I would agree that I also thought it was time well spent helping to address particularly interagency coordination. And Brendan Dudley from the White House did let us know that the president has requested an additional 40 billion from Congress, basically to refill the FEMA treasury. We have enough short term, but this is long-term request. And although there's no guarantee, several of the people there pointed out that disaster relief has a history of bipartisan support, so they expect it will pass. But
that was 40 billion, you said?
Yeah.
Any other? Yeah.
I'll just note that Patty Gemelli is joining us on Zoom, so
Oh, okay,
all five of us are here.
great. Okay, hi Patty. We have a request for a change of or announcement.
I mentioned earlier, I had an announcement.
Yeah,
I want everyone who's watching to be aware that tomorrow we're gonna have our first winter storm It was started out 1 o'clock in the morning, and it would be, leave a layer of ice on everything, about 1/10 of an inch they're estimating. And that it will be very important for people who have a morning commute to make sure you give yourself a lot of extra time to get there, because it will be dangerous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
And just one other small note for folks in the room, if you hear noises coming from over there, one of our volunteer electricians is in the backstage trying to fix some lighting issues. So in case folks are wondering what's going on back there.
You'll see some feet moving. Well, we have public comment. Anyone have any thing they want to say? All right, and nobody on screen. Oh, yes.
Yes, I'm Ray Carter. I wear several hats in the community. One is co-manager of the farmer's market, and the winter farmer's market is starting. It'll be here the first Sunday of each month. And we've been really trying to bring in more vendors, and with that comes the need for more customers so that more vendors want to come in. So anyone who wants to help spread the word and encourage folks to come to the market, it's 11 to 3 first Sunday of the month.
Great announcement. Thank you.
Thanks.
We have a hand up. Yes, Karen.
I have an announcement. I just want to put out a note of gratitude for the Friendsgiving that was held at the Goddard campus, put on by Mike Davidson and Selena Barton and a host of volunteers, but it was really well attended, and it was a beautiful gathering of community and really nice energy. So just a note of thanks for everybody who pulled that off. Really appreciate it.
Great. Yeah, I regretfully had to miss that, but it sounded great. We have, there's no other comments. We have update from Attorney Eli. Is he here?
Eli's online.
Okay, great. Regarding the loan from the bond bank. Eli, you're on.
Okay, thanks. I think we talked recently more just generally about me doing legal work for the town. Since then, the bond bank has approved a specific loan for the town. One of the things that's helpful to have a discussion about, and I'm happy to answer more questions, but that this is a very specific program the bond bank designed for flood response, and it was designed to be interim financing really until FEMA funding came in. And so the practical impact for you guys is that it's designed in a way that doesn't require a town vote. It just requires approval of the select board, and I'm happy to talk about why. But that means that the closing is coming up pretty soon. So there's a good amount of paperwork that I need to draft between now and the date of the closing. So that's my goal. I think logistics wise, the challenge is that I need to get it drafted with enough detail so that the select board can authorize and sign the documents. So I need to gather more detail and draft, but then you guys are going to have a meeting where you have the documents in front of you, and you authorize and sign those documents, and then several days later there'll be a closing where the loan, I think it's structured as basically like a line of credit. So you would have a requisition form every time, and there's standards for sort of what documentation you need to use with the requisition form. But it sounds like that money should start to be available towards the end of the month. That's just real quick explanation of where we are. They sent a letter of a commitment letter for the town to sign. So happy to talk a little bit more about what this is and what the structure of the loan is, if that would be helpful. Or you can ask questions.
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to point out is that we want to make sure people understand what this is. This is specifically for you said this, but it's specifically for the flood response. It's to help towns get through the shortfalls we're going to see as we pay vendors who are helping us repair roads and buildings and so on. And that's the fundamental reason for the governor and the state setting this up.
And that's before the FEMA funds
Right.
enter our account.
Once the FEMA funds come in, as I understand, then this loan will be paid off and we'll be done with it.
Yeah, so I'll just talk real briefly about what the structure is. This is sort of based on Vermont statute. The best way for a town to respond quickly in a situation like this has been this, it's really a two-step process. There's one which is a current expense note, which only needs to be authorized by the select board. But the limit is that can only last a year. So in a year, you either have to replace it, say, with another 1-year current expense note, or more typically in what the bond bank does is you replace it with something called a refunding note. And a refunding note also can be authorized by the select board. It doesn't require a town vote. So I think that's the process that the state and the bond bank have set up to do this. And I've done it. They did a little less than a year ago. There was another round of funding for the flooding that occurred in 2023. So I had, I think 7 or 8 of the loans that were a part of that. So I have the document package all ready to go and I could start drafting it. It's a bit cumbersome from my perspective. I think the bond bank is typically used to closing on 20-30 year bonds. So their document package is fairly significant. Whereas if you would go to a bank for a 1-year current expense note, you'd probably see a more limited set of documents. But the bond bank just has their set of documents that they work with. So the documentation for this 1-year note actually is pretty thorough, like it is a 20-30 year bond. So that's why it takes me a little bit to work through to draft it. And when you see them, you'll say, wow, this seems really kind of cumbersome for a 1-year note, but that's just the way the bond bank has set it up.
And what we'll be getting as a select board, this Carl, is that document, assuming we move forward with it tonight. We'll get that document in front of us so we can have a vote on it.
Yeah, essentially. So the main document will be a loan agreement. But the select board needs to adopt an authorizing resolution. There's the note itself that needs to be signed. There's a couple other forms related to just sort of administration of the loan. So it's kind of a package of documents, a lot of signatures go on it. But I'd be happy once they're ready and you guys have your meeting where you would authorize them to sit with you guys and walk you through what each document does and why you're signing it.
Do you need something from us tonight?
I guess it would just be, well, no, but I do need to we need to at least prepare ourselves for some amount of flexibility here, because the other thing that the bond bank typically isn't real appreciative of, I mean, like, they don't really consider very well are the logistics of having to schedule meetings and sign these documents. So, in some point in the future, I'm thinking maybe middle of next week, I'll probably have these documents in a good enough shape for the select board to adopt. But then based on the timing, we're going to have to schedule a meeting where people can attend so they can sign the documents, and then time that meeting so it's just, a few days before whenever they're going to close on we sign the documents in advance of the closing, and we would do that as a select board meeting. But that's where you can see the timing can get a little challenging, because I have to prepare the documents, and you have to get them in front of the select board and schedule a meeting. And that meeting has to be, not too far in advance of when the closing on the loan is going to be. So that's really more what I'd say is we're going to have to sort of work with each other to figure out what's the right timing of when the closing is and when the select board meets to approve the documents.
Okay,
Right now, Eli, the select board is scheduled to meet more or less every Monday until Christmas.
Sorry, say that again.
The select board right now is scheduled to meet every Monday
Oh, okay.
until Christmas. Is that like a flexible enough timetable for you to fit the timetable that you're working with within?
Probably, let me just check to see if I don't know if the commitment letter indicated a closing date. Just-
While you're looking for Emmett a question,
Well, I just said that I thought that there was on the commitment letter that it was due by December 6th.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Brent Tobin, town clerk.
I think it's up.
You gotta hit the mute button.
Is it on now?
Yeah.
Great, Brent Tobin, town clerk. I was under the impression that the commitment letter, which I don't know that it obliges anything. The commitment letter is due December 6th, and perhaps it would be prudent to sign that tonight. Given the scheduling, but if you don't want to, that's fine. I'm just saying, December 6th is that I think the letter they have to see that we're interested. And just as a note, we're recording, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
we have a question.
So just to follow up on that point, you're right, the commitment letter needs to be signed by December 6th and returned to the bond bank. It says the closings are expected to occur the week of December 16th. So, as long as a Monday should work. If I go to the meeting and can collect the documents afterwards, then, the closing could be the next day because I could deliver them. But I do think that most likely a meeting on Monday would work. We just may, once we get to see the sort of the details of how the closing is going to work, might have to readjust our expectations for that. But I'm thinking a Monday select board meeting, if it happens every week, would be fine.
Eli, how much time do you think it would take for us to go over those documents at the meeting? I mean, we're scheduled these Monday meetings primarily to do our budget hearings and budget building. And I'm just wondering if it's gonna take an hour or 2 hours, we may need a special meeting.
I don't think it should take long, with a couple of caveats. One, everyone can review the documents much earlier in advance, so they're familiar with them and may be able to get comfortable with them. You're not seeing them for the first time at the meeting. The other thing is, there really are, there's only a couple important conditions, and one off the top, I can read you from the commitment letter, so you really know what the covenants are. Basically, it says that 50% of any FEMA reimbursement received must be used to prepay the loan. So it means anytime you get a reimbursement from FEMA, you need to use at least half of that to pay off the loan. I think that's one of the ones that sort of logistically can be challenging sometimes, right? Because you guys are in cash flow. Sometimes you have a cash flow issue. And so having to give up 50% of that reimbursement to pay off the loan may be a bit challenging, but that's a covenant that has to go into the loan documents. There's some reporting requirements. Every 90 days, you need to provide certain reporting on the FEMA reimbursements. And then there's also just a requirement to provide audited financial statements whenever the fiscal year ends.
So Eli, I had a question about that third covenant because I was confused about the language, which reads that the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ending immediately before the first year of loan amortization. And I said to myself, so what year does that mean? Does that mean the year that ended last June 30th or the one that's ending this coming June 30th and beyond?
First year, well, it's a good question about amortization. First of all, I believe they amortize it over 7 years, maybe. So the first year of amortization would be, yes, we're in the current fiscal year where the amortization is going to begin. So, that's how it would be the fiscal year that ended previously. Worth a conversation. That may not be worded exactly how the bond bank wants it. So worth a follow-up conversation, but that's how I would read it is. It is
It
the,
would be good, it would be good to get clarity.
yeah, audited financial statements for the previous fiscal year, because it's gonna start amortizing this year, I believe.
We had a question in the back here.
My name is Philip Parisi. I'm a resident on Main Street. The bond bank is a federal institution.
State
State.
of Vermont.
What is the amount of the loan?
It is 1 million.
What, I guess I should put this to the select board question. How much have we asked FEMA for?
Not been determined.
Wait, we got to use the mic, whoever's speaking.
Okay. Karen can, no.
I'm sorry, what was your question? Gotta use the mic first. My question is, how much have we requested for FEMA? Tonight's the last minute at 10 o'clock that any FEMA requests, applications have to be put in according to VPR. So I'm wondering if we're asking for $1 million, how much are we expecting to get from FEMA, or how much have we asked them to give us?
So that's not, this is Josh, that's the treasurer. Is that accurate?
She should
The
say something.
FEMA process for the municipality is ongoing. We're at current costs still, and those costs are tabulated. And then this doesn't only apply to covering the spending gap for FEMA, it also applies to the Federal Highway Works Administration, which is paying for the work that's being done on Brook Road and Mill Street. So combined, so far, we've paid about half of the invoices applicable to that we will then get reimbursed by the federal agencies. And the total that paid and unpaid invoices, when I looked today, was about 1.2 million. And so so we're kind of roughly equivalent to, where we would expect to get reimbursed with that. So the bond is really about making sure that we have liquidity and not, getting into a dire situation.
Josh, we have Karen,
I'm not done.
Well, I know Karen's gonna answer the question.
she's gonna answer that question.
Karen Hatcher, I just want to clarify, the deadline that you're referring to has to do with individual assistance from FEMA. That's a different program than the public assistance that we're talking about using the bond for. So, yes, you're correct. There is a deadline for FEMA application for individuals. That's tonight. However, for us, the public assistance piece it's ongoing. We are tracking all the damages and gathering all the invoices. And so what Josh has reflected is that to date, that's about $2 million worth that we've collected. So two different things, and just want to make sure we're clear what's what.
Yeah, follow up.
Yeah, I do. Well, thank you for that, Karen. It wasn't clear what they were saying on VPR, so they were probably, as you said, they were talking about individuals. What happens if we don't get?
Did you use the mic, please?
I am using the mic.
No,
You have to put it in.
You have to hold it to your mouth or closer.
I spoke really loud. I didn't want to get feedback.
Yeah.
So I get always poked for that. So what happens if whatever the number is that ultimately gets submitted to FEMA, what if FEMA doesn't come through with that? What happens with the bond then? And I'm assuming this is a zero interest bond?
What are the terms of the loan? Who's got it?
0.5% interest.
And that's a really good interest rate.
Yeah,
That would be very helpful for mortgages for sure. I'm just really concerned with the new administration and there's so much out there, and I understand why you're doing this, and I think it's prudent. But what happens if we don't get the money to pay them back in a year, the 50%? What happens? Does that come on the taxpayers to pay that? Or is there an alternative plan in the works? Because I think we need to be aware that on January 20th, the United States of America is going to turn into a very different place than we're living in at the moment. Thank you. And thank you, Karen, for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You don't have to say it.
Josh, do you want, we have heard from the bond bank folks that there is some option for loan forgiveness. I don't know if that's written into this, but that was what they told us. If we were not able to raise the funds back, get the reimbursement from FEMA in full, that there was a possibility of the loan being forgiven. But I also want to say that FEMA is only one funding reimbursement source that we are pursuing because, as Josh mentioned, Federal Highway is another one, and there's several other pieces to the kinds of funds we might be able to bring in to do the work we need to do and to replenish the cash. So, you know, it's one piece, but it's a big puzzle.
Thank you, Karen.
Yes, and Karen is our grants administrator, so she is all over the details of that grant part of the
I'm
program.
sorry, I missed that.
Karen is our grants administrator, town grants administrator. She runs the committee that's doing all the legwork, which is tremendous amount of legwork to document what we need from FEMA.
Can I just throw one more thing in there before Josh talks? Just to, I'm related to what Karen just said.
Yeah,
And I'm sorry, what's the lawyer's name again?
Eli.
Eli.
Eli, I think that what Karen said about speaking to the bond bank about loan forgiveness may be something that should be either, I don't know if this is the right word, if it's an amendment or a codicil to this loan agreement, but having it verbally is not the same thing as having it in the signed legal document. So maybe you two should really discuss that, because that would be our out.
I
Thank you.
can ask, it's not a commitment that's in the commitment letter, and I haven't discussed that with them, so it is a conversation that would need to be
Did
had.
you see it? You did?
Just to give a little clarity on the state of Vermont
Josh,
and
just handed us.
the situation involved with loan forgiveness. Often the state will fund projects through process of loan forgiveness.
You saw? it? Yeah.
So it's not a rare.
Okay.
Okay, so what do we need to,
So Eli, with needing a clarification on the auditing piece and on the loan forgiveness piece, would you be able to check in with them and get back to us? We do have a meeting next Monday, the 2nd, which if we have someone from the town sign the letter on that day, we can still get it back to them by the 6th, right?
The only thing we need by the 6th is that.
Yeah, but should we do that tonight or should we wait and get some more?
well, it sounds like you need it tonight, or you'd like it tonight, so we have
Well, they need it by the 6th.
I had, it was my question about the date of the audit, just to clarify. But that is the covenant, whether it's last June 30th or next June 30th. I just wanted to clear that up. So that won't stop me from voting for this. So I would move that we sign the commitment letter.
Okay.
Who specifically to sign it?
Well, does it have one signature?
Yes.
It's just one.
Carl.
I guess the chair should sign it.
All right.
I need a second.
Yeah, second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Patty, you there?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So it's unanimous. And I need to have authorization to sign it? Or was that part of it?
Well, that's why I was trying to get part of it.
Okay,
I think he just authorized. it.
so I'll sign this on behalf of the board.
Yeah, I will ask about the loan forgiveness and the specific date of the audit. I got an out of office email from both Ken and Michael for the rest of the week, so it'll have to be next week when I ask them that question.
I don't wanna.
Just real quick that, I don't think they're gonna put that in the contract because FEMA is a reimburser or payroll of last resort. And so if there were another thing that were contractually obligated, FEMA would not pay. And so I think that language is not gonna end up there. Just a heads up.
And that was area into Bermuda.
Yeah. Areas in-
Okay, do you have something else? No, okay. So we've signed this document, Eli, I guess that's what you need for now. And, we will hear from you about the next step.
Yep.
In our next meeting.
You can, I would email that back to Ken. You can copy me, but he's the one who really needs the copy of the letter, so when you send it back,
Okay.
send it to Ken and copy me.
Okay, you take care of that, okay.
Thank you, Eli.
Thank you, Eli.
Yep, and
Josh,
any more questions or?
I don't think so. Josh is gonna take care of that tomorrow, I guess.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, town treasurer. Report.
So currently, we're working on getting all the backlog of invoices that were incurred during the flood, moved out. There's still quite a backlog. Today, we've paid up all of our non-flood expenses today, and so we're planning on, we still have to move the now uncommitted ARPA funds back in the general fund. But currently feel pretty good about our fiscal position. We're still waiting to get back the money from the 2023 Federal Highway Works Administration, and I'm expecting that should come back sometime in the next week or so. So you know, from our what we expect to get in the next quarter, there's gonna be revenue that typically doesn't happen to the town in that period, and so it's certainly made paying bills very easy.
Mhm.
And then I've been meeting with, I met with Jonathan, the fire chief, last week about what to prepare for the select board's budget meeting. And I'm planning on meeting with Michael Bain, the road foreman, to discuss the budget meeting coming up, prepare things for that. And one of the main tasks lately has been to update our chart of accounts. So there are a lot of artifacts in the chart of accounts from things being kind of added on and over, and so there's a much more simplified version that our bookkeeper and Penny and I have written up, and so we'll use that version to set our budget for 25-26. It's a lot of the breakout of the departmental fringe and other components that were all broken out by department don't necessarily need to be broken out by department, and there were a lot of other things that were unconsolidated, like all of the electricity that the town pays for things like there would be a line item for the lights at the rec field, and then a line item for lights. So we've created a more like logical ordering of the accounts, and that'll help us for years to come in terms of understanding, like, okay, where's the money all going? How can we better save money?
Will we be able to see all this before I mean, I'm hoping we can do this next Monday, a week from today. If we could see it a little bit before that, so we can start to digest these changes, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, and I can share that around probably Wednesday. I'll send an example out to everyone that will look like this, and very easy to kind of fill in the numbers as we go down.
Okay, good.
And then, transitioning into my road commissioner's report.
So we'll move right into the road commissioner's report since you do both.
We have, we've got all of our sand for the winter in. The last step of the emergency phase for much of the for many of the locations where we did emergency repairs after the flood, the final step is putting in guardrails. And so today, I believe they put in the guardrails, although I wasn't down there today. I believe they put guardrails in on Cameron Road and around the corner on Brook Road. And I'm unsure if they're doing this today, but there are, I believe there are plans putting guardrails on Maxfield Road. Because they were there previously, and a few other locations up on that end of the brook. In those locations, there isn't necessarily an intermediate unfinished work in terms of the emergency phase. So those locations, that represents the final spend. So in terms of like getting that final invoice back, that can then get turned around as a summary for the Municipal Assistance Bureau and creating those damage inventory summaries. It only takes about maybe 6 to 8 weeks to get the money back on those.
So if I can rephrase,
Mhm.
we're going to collect the bills for the final work for under the emergency program, including the guardrails, which I really appreciate. And we're then going to send an invoice to the state to get reimbursed for that.
Yeah, so the way it's structured is, for the federal highway works, everything is chopped up into sections.
Mhm.
And going section by section, like section 3, for example, would be between Creamery Street and Cameron Road. That section of federal highway, all of the expense of that work gets bundled. We pay that out, and then we take all those payments, all of our force account, which is our labor and time on equipment, and all of the materials and contract work. We document all that, put that in a spreadsheet, add a bunch of photographs to it by our town photographer, Bram Tobin. And it all goes in a very large PDF, and it gets emailed out. They put a cover sheet on it. The Municipal Assistance Bureau signs off on it. They send it back to me. I sign off on it, and then it goes up to the feds, and then it's gonna come back down, and they'll then issue the money on that. So
And I think it's important to say this is not FEMA right now that we're
that is
talking about.
not FEMA. There are, and maybe Karen could speak to this, but there will be an opportunity to receive some funds back from FEMA. But the Federal Highway works very quickly, and one of the things that I learned in meeting with the folks from FEMA and last week was that because Federal Highway is funded out several years, and they have a structure in which money flows into the state and down to municipalities, that is a well greased chute of money that can flow downhill very quickly versus the emergency situations with having the emergency declarations and then all of the work to initiate a new system every time to get money. It's a much more simple process. So
Okay, I think Karen, when she does her report tonight, you'll be talking about that, Karen? Yeah, great.
Oh, that's a good question.
Sorry, yes.
So with the guardrails being, you said you sort of characterize this as the final step of the emergency repairs. That means our road crew is essentially back to normal operations and maintenance including ice
Normal
storm.
operations and maintenance between Prince Street and Cameron Road for that part. And normal operation, and then for the next one that is essentially finished in its emergency phase. So like each one of those locations is taken on its own. It's, you know, you cut up that steak and take little bites.
So we still have more of those to do.
Yeah, there's 13 and some will require, some are going to be a very long process, but many of them essentially are getting wrapped up and won't necessarily require large rework or engineering or scoping or anything like it. For its, you know, for the emergency, there isn't a plan in place to then move on to the next phase of like creating a larger project, unlike in some locations.
I have a question.
Michael,
Please use the microphone,
Michael
Michael.
Billingsley.
you have to, yeah, you have to use your mic. People can't hear you otherwise.
Michael Billingsley, I'm still curious because it was hanging in the air a couple of weeks ago, whether a decision has been made about the bridge to the left or to the south, what would be to the south of the base of Fowler Road that leads out to the Cochran's house. Has there been any decision about the timing of it and whether it will be repaired at all or left as it is?
I'd like. You know, one of the things that, you know, that is on my to-do list is to make sure that we can get that something temporary there to get to the Cochran's house.
Yes.
And I've not gotten on that, and that needs to be something that I need to get on, let me make a note here. But it should be possible
Okay.
to get done.
I asked the question because it is now apparent that one of the Cochrans is going to be moving back there for the winter, very likely. I just found out yesterday.
I'm hoping that this detail can be sorted out as you're approaching these. I'd like to keep things going, but I appreciate the paving and the guardrails. I'm glad you're getting those done because they're safety issues. So anything you want to follow up on? Any questions from the board? I think that's it.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you very much.
Did you skip an agenda item by any chance?
No, you are next on the agenda.
Okay,
right?
I know, but there was something here about a climate recovery fund.
That's the thing that we signed. That's the Eli
Oh, I was-
related.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
great, thank you.
Yeah, so we have, so I guess this is you, Michael, discuss and act on the village expansion steering committee.
No,
No,
Oh,
this is the addition that we made.
the addition, I'm sorry,
this is.
the one I didn't write down. Yes, yeah.
Emergency manager,
okay.
accessibility request pertaining to AmeriCorps.
Yes, okay, thank you.
So, I'll make this fairly concise, but there is some decision-making that will follow. In the past 2.5 years, probably about half of that time, I've been trying to find assistance for the work that I do. And emergency management embraces a lot of different tasks, which go from one hand from hazard mitigation, the other hand to individual assistance, which I do with part of the team, and also very much having to do with keeping track of details in terms of the state support for us, not just now, but also into the future, because we are already planning to prepare better for the next disaster. So in terms of my appeal to the board and also to other funders, which has been going on, I have some disabilities that make it difficult for me to do multitasking. And usually I don't have very good record for doing record keeping from the point of view of looking backwards. It's only when I have nothing to do, which is never, can I look back and see what it is that I have done, even though Mary Therese asked me to try and account for my time and anywhere from whatever month it is in the back, I have trouble doing that. So getting assistance is not just simply a matter of, gee, it would be nice to have extra help, but it actually is very significant for my being able to do full executive function. And I can do really well when I have help, and I start to fall apart when I end up either being anxious or under time pressure. So I've been putting out requests, first through the Community Foundation, then through Capstone, then through Vermont Center for Independent Living. And they recommended I go and ask AmeriCorps if there was a possibility to create a position on my behalf. And astoundingly, as of just a few days ago, AmeriCorps received funding or go ahead for 6 additional positions in Vermont, one of which they are tentatively interested in providing to me. So it would be kind of an interesting coup. I thought people in the AmeriCorps program were purely volunteers, but that is not so. They actually receive a salary coming through the AmeriCorps budget. There are certain kinds of parameters that are connected with AmeriCorps and VISTA, which include having a focus on anti-poverty, which is very appropriate because half the people impacted by the flood now and will be impacted in the future are people who are low income because they typically are more likely to live in homes that are less protected on the floodplain. And also community empowerment, sustainable solutions in the sense of not just, which we're already doing, and capacity building, which is very much helping me do my job better. And so they're asking us to, as a town, because the AmeriCorps contract is done with the town of Plainfield or with a nonprofit organization. They're asking in this case that we provide a letter of intent. So what I wanted to propose to the, they also is an RFP, which I will circulate to the select board. It's an 11-page RFP basically saying what we are stepping into has certain parameters and known outcomes that are requesting specifically things about the tracking of the volunteers' time and that sort of thing, or the AmeriCorps person's time. The program is brand new. It's called the Vermont Climate Corps Vista Disaster Cadre. It's kind of a long name, but they feel that the request that I put in front of them verbally is very appropriate. The person will be working not just in planning, disaster planning, helping me do that, hazard mitigation and its relationship with that, and also both looking at the present, past, and future activity of emergency management, making sure all those jobs get done. We just today, as was mentioned earlier, we reached the end of our individual assistance period. So close to 200 people made claims in Plainfield. And of those, 40 were displaced families, which we've been able to find homes for. But this process is still underway, and it is still, I'm still working 30 hours a week as it stands. So as a volunteer completely, it would be nice to have a committed helper. And so my intention is to write a draft letter of intent to provide it to you in the next few days, along with a copy of the RFP, and to request at your next meeting that the letter of intent be signed and that we convey it to AmeriCorps.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Dan, what it looks, so the person would start March 10th,
March 10th.
and it would be a, how long?
1 year.
1 year. And I think you had said previously, maybe this isn't accurate anymore, that you had planned on not being the emergency manager past the town meeting day?
Well, it's up for grabs at this point. I mean, I had presented that as a likelihood if I couldn't find a replacement. This person, and I haven't said this, but I was also going to propose as of town meeting day that a new position be created, which would be hazard mitigation specialist, which is what I was doing when I was an emergency management director. And that way I would be able to continue supervising this person and directing their energy at the various tasks. So one of the underlying outcomes would be, I would be the assigned site supervisor for this individual. They would be working on various tasks. They might be working part of the time with Darien, the boomer. They might be working part of the time with the Goddard group. They might be working part of the time with things that would be appropriate assignments. They would receive, typically the town is asked to kick back in $6,000 of the $25,000 that the person has is given. But they are also agreed to forgive us and give us a scholarship for that. So we would not have any financial commitment. We would appeal to the community to help us house such a person. But also at the same time, they're offering an alternative, which is the Vermont College campus in Montpelier. One of those buildings is going to be converted to VistaCore housing if the person can't find someplace in the community. So a lot of the questions are being solved, and I hope it's actually going to be close to a free commitment.
Question,
Yes.
if it shakes out that you are neither the emergency coordinator or the hazard mitigation coordinator, does the Vista volunteer, if we go through this process, are they nevertheless assigned to this large broad task of hazard mitigation for the town?
All the tasks would remain. In other words, whatever set of tasks that end up being in the letter of intent, if they're approved by Vista, which I presume they will be, will still remain. So that person will still do support work for the emergency management director,
Who's ever in that position?
whoever that would be.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Peter.
No, go, you got.
I was just gonna ask quickly, you said they have to be put up, is that a housing by a volunteer citizen in the town? Or are we looking for somebody that might be willing to house this person for a year? Or,
There's a scale of possibilities. They can either be given housing as a gift to the volunteer, or they can have partially reduced pay or reduced cost housing. The options are going to be made more clear to us. They're still
Okay,
shaping the
okay.
program.
all right, go ahead, Peter.
Well, I was reading your handout, attachments with the new applications, a letter of support from the board or advisory committee board in this case, must support placing a member at the site. Is that the housing commitment?
That is the housing commitment, although they did say verbally today that they would have a backup housing arrangement.
It says, and the next phrase is, and paying the cost share.
And that's
you
the
mentioned that.
$6,000, which we again have been told verbally, we could apply, we would be eligible for a scholarship. I explained our cash flow situation.
So I would hope, as was similarly stated in an earlier conversation on another subject, that we clarify in writing that that there is no cost share here.
We would ask for that in our letter of intent.
Yep, okay. So we'll be looking for something from you then, Michael,
Right.
soon.
Yeah.
So we have time to review it.
Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks for all your work. Okay, now. Council on Rural Development. Is that what we're talking about?
Yep, Ariana.
Yeah. Arian,
Area story, basically, the steering committee for the village expansion project, they would like the select board to formally request help with the design, public design day, which we actually have reserved this Opera House space for on February 8th of next year. That's a Saturday from 10 to, we're saying from 10 to 3 o'clock.
is that an open discussion?
Open discussion, open to the entire community. We are gonna be promoting that. We did just get confirmation that the space is reserved today, so we haven't started promoting that until we knew
Great.
where it was gonna be. So we will be promoting that as well, not just on Front Porch Forum and Facebook, but we also want to do a direct mailing. And so this request, which must come from the select board, which the Vermont Council on Rural Development is already very open to this idea. Some of you may recall, last month, they came and visited this forum and talked about facilitation services. So their funding streams require the request to come from the select board, not just from a citizen group in a town. And they may reach out to the select board to see if there are other things that the town would like help with. This is one specific request that our group would like help with, or help facilitating and designing that meeting. They have a lot of experience with this, as they told. And then they also have some funds that they could help for direct mailing to actually mail that out to the list of town people, presumably every address that has eligible voters in town. I don't exactly know the list.
But they've done this before, so they know
Yeah,
how
they
to.
do this all the time.
So are you looking for a motion, or do you need a
I
letter,
sent
or
the
what do you?
letter, so I sent a draft letter. I don't
Yes.
know if you have, so yeah, there's a draft letter that would just need to be signed by somebody from the select board and then mailed to Jessica, Savage.
I don't know
I
if
don't think
I,
we have a printout.
yeah, is it in there?
Let's check.
Okay, it sent a copy to you and Kristen, and then it just would need to be signed and emailed to Jessica Savage.
Okay,
Okay, not present.
not
Yeah.
present here.
I got it on my computer, email it to Dan or something.
Well, why don't we do this? If the board agrees that this request should be done, I think we can do that. Give
I mean,
me,
shall we make a
Can you-
motion to
can
sign
you-
the letter?
Well, can we just have Arian read the letter?
I can read it, yeah, the substance of the motion is essentially just asking for facilitation and direct mailing help. Let me see if I can find the letter.
yeah, I'm sorry, we should have had that, but.
While I
Peter?
was looking, I would just comment, I went back and reread the minutes from the meeting when they were here and gave that presentation, and this is a very focused request.
Very focused.
And I
yeah.
think, which is positive, I think there was a lot of public comment that some past things had not been so focused.
Mhm.
So I like that about this.
Well, they may have heard us. I think the comments we got were, we want it to be focused, so this is.
I mean, I think the select board is still sitting with the question before us is, would we like broader help from the VCRD
Right.
for Plainfield's future from here? And that is a question that I would like the select board to return to, consciously
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
respond.
There's nothing in this request that would preclude additional requests in the future for other things, but there's certainly no limitation. And, the letter basically says, thank you for coming to speak at our select board meeting in October. As you're aware, there's a group of townspeople exploring the development of a new neighborhood on the east side of our village to replace housing lost during the past summer's flood. The Plainfield Village Expansion Committee, the Plainfield Select Board is ready to ask the Vermont Council on Rural Development to provide assistance to this group to promote and facilitate a community design meeting on February 8th. This would specifically include providing meeting design help, facilitation during the meeting, and funding for up to 2 direct mailings to promote this meeting and other assistance as needed. That's the letter.
That's it.
Full support.
It's pretty helpful.
May I make a motion that the select board sign this letter that Aaron Tabumri has just read for the VCRD in support of the February 8th community planning meeting for the village expansion project.
I can second that motion. Oh,
Yep, thank you. Patty got second.
second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And do we want to have somebody authorized to sign this letter? We, as a board agreed, but I'm happy to sign it if there is, but we need a motion for that.
Motion to allow Carl Bissix, board chair, to sign this letter for the VCRD support.
I second that motion. Aye.
Yeah, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So when I get it from you, or when the clerk gets it from you, I will.
I'll send it again right now.
Yeah, okay. And I will sign it and I'll hand it off in the office. Or does it go, do
I mean,
you,
if Kristen sends me a scan, I can make sure Jessica gets it, the letter.
okay, Bram has a comment probably about Christmas.
Send it to me. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
send it,
I'll send it to Brent.
send it to Bram. Yeah,
Very good.
thank
Do
you.
that right.
Okay. Good, okay, thank you very much. And that sounds exciting. And I'm happy things are moving with that.
First question.
Oh, I'm sorry, a question, yes. A name? Yeah.
Question is something that, Rose just brought up, was just a question around further work with VCRD, totally understanding that this is happening, for that longer term flood recovery type of work, just is that on future select board radar, or just from that meeting for something that's a more broad base?
I think,
Whatever it might be that's in longer term flood recovery that encompasses like all aspects of planning for future disaster.
I think I think the board's generally in support of this, as is my sense, of planning for the future. I think that the best way to have it happen is to come to the board with a specific request such as Arian's done, because then we have something we can react to, rather than just say, let's just think about the future, which we need to do, but it's not as focused as this is.
Yeah, I was meeting in response to the presentation, like to what VCRD came, like are there plans or are there discussions about longer term flood recovery? Is that something that you're looking for people in the community to come forward and bring?
Yes, I would say. We want to know, I mean, we don't necessarily know what's going on with everybody in the community. We'd like to get input from the community so that we can react and decide if that suits the long-term growth or health of the town. That's kind of our role, as I see it.
I think I'd like to like reflect and also bridge what I'm hearing. There is concern on the select board about the tensions previously stated about the previous times the VCRD has been involved. And so there is any caution, there is any sense of caution. There is a lot of support for basically professional support that the VCRD can offer this town. And if someone or ones, kind of what Carl just said, is willing to like create a proposal, what can the VCRD bring? We have not like met independently to come up with that proposal. However, a proposal coming our way about this is what is possible with the VCRD coming up this winter. This is this season of community meetings. And if that's resonant, which I expect it will be across the board, it's a yes. But we have not, designed that proposal personally across the board and have not received that proposal. So there is possibility for any person or persons working group in the town, to create that proposal, run it by VCRD, bring it back before the board. Peter.
I would also say that we have a lot of work on our plate. We have changed how our town clerk and treasurer positions are done. We've expanded the select board. We had a very tumultuous several years in the town office. The town treasurer talking about the chart of accounts. There's a lot of very mundane, boring, tedious, but essential work that has to be done. And we're now in our budget building season. So we're not likely to say, hey, let's meet again to brainstorm something. And so when I saw this, I said, this is great because it takes them up on their offer, but it also responded to the request to be focused about it. And so I would just add that for context.
Thank you all so much.
I want to recognize Karen.
Yeah, thank you, Karen Hatcher. What I want to say about this topic is that I believe there will be a time in the course of the next many months when it will be appropriate for us to think about bringing VCRD or some other entity to us to help us with a broader discussion. But I think where we are right at the moment is we're just coming out of emergency repair. We've got a lot of work to do to understand what the options might be for recovering, rebuilding resilience in the town. We're not there yet. I think we need a lot more information before we can pull a meeting together to be able to present some options to make a really good use of time. But in my opinion, as the person who's kind of working with the group on recovery and grants and that, I think there will be a point where we want to do those public meetings, but I just don't think we're quite there. And when we get there, I think it might come from our group. It could come from somewhere else, but I think it might be appropriate to come from our group, a request to the board to do something like this. But it's for me, it's definitely on my list, but I just don't see it as like right now. So just want to say that.
Michael?
And Michael Billingsley, also speaking as a member of the funding group. What we also know from our meeting with the federal and state officials on Friday is that we actually have outstanding progress in our recovery from the flood compared to many other towns, which are going through a great deal of reorganization, trying to figure out where to get the human power, where to get the skill, where to get the teamwork that will address this issue. And we are very, very far ahead of that. And part of, because it started very early and we had many volunteers very early and a new select board. And so in terms of team building and public engagement to address issues, it also is the kind of thing that the rural development have been very helpful in helping other towns do from the get-go. In other words, starting from scratch. And the fact that we're not starting from scratch and have made so much impressive progress may change the kind of list of needs that we need from such an organization.
And
I would add
yeah.
to that, and also what they're willing to provide, able to provide, and see that it is appropriate to provide.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I think to close this out, the message to the community is, if you see something that you would like addressed, but you're not sure how to organize it, this organization sounds great. But they're gonna wanna have specifics, as you said, and knowing that there's people that with the energy to follow through. And I think this board would be very supportive of those kinds of proposals.
Although I do want to say though, that there is, like, someone has a smaller idea, for example, of what they can do. This is a very large idea, the village expansion project. This like wants a day long at least to talk about this together. But there might be want for, a nest of smaller projects. And maybe there might be want for a brainstorm meeting for what those smaller projects could be. And it's maybe a more generative space and time to create that list of smaller projects with some kind of community forum. So I don't want to limit the use of calling VCRD into the picture when there are specific projects only, because there is a generative factor, I understand, of people in a room together talking about it.
I would, as a follow-up to that, I think a quick example could be, what do we do with this green space we're gonna wind up with along the brook?
Yeah.
Do we build a gazebo? Do we put in a piece of art? Do we have picnic tables, which is about all we're allowed to have, but still it would make it welcome. So this kind of thing could have a nice discussion.
Thank you.
Restrooms allowed.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I think we'll wind it there. I'm gonna sign that document tomorrow, and get it to Bram.
Just emailed it to both you, Carl.
Okay, great. Okay, Plainfield Arts, has a request. Speaking of specifics.
I'm Keith Swan. I'll pass the follow here, but I'm the secretary of Plainfield Arts, which is a volunteer organization that actually runs this facility, deals with incoming rentals and also stages productions of our own. We're on the town meeting budget, we were always, the money was always allocated there. And normally we get 2 payments after July 1st, but because of the flood, we just kind of like pushed everything back. So I'm here to address the payment to the Plainfield Arts. I did provide, unfortunately, I can't project one, but I did provide to the panel here the different events. There's been 14 events staged by Plainfield Arts. There's been several paid events, theater and music. Let's see, let's ones here. Farmers market that comes in every year. There's been a couple of private parties, the co-op meetings, and there's been several school events that use this facility. They pay to use this facility for graduations and things. And now the town is using a lot more than it ever did before. Part of it was the emergency management this year. Pretty much the whole summer was being consumed by that. And now the select board is using the space. So I just wanted to address the budget for the Plainfield Arts. I don't think anybody has any questions based on this year.
Could you clarify what the role is of the Plainfield Arts in terms of the overseeing of the building?
Good point. Yeah, we actually have a management contract. So basically we handle all inquiries about rentals. We take the rental checks, give them to the town office. We deal with people who clean the space. Obviously, the events that we do all the volunteer setting up and the cleaning up and parking. We also make suggestions on maintenance. There is a maintenance budget for the town hall anyway, but we're always on top of things, checking the electric, and in fact, there's the curtain right now is, we're gonna, oh, is that there?
There's a bulb out right behind you.
Oh. Well, fix that bulb. So, yeah, so basically, it's like we're an organization that runs this facility for the town and handles the rentals. We also do all of the website postings to advertise, to get rentals and like our events and all of the social media posts. Question?
Did you have a question back there? No, they're pointing.
They're pointing at the lights.
Not at all that. Oh,
Yeah.
And so, and full disclosure, I'm on the Plainfield Arts Board, volunteer role that I have in town. So typically in July, as Plainfield Arts, we re-up our management contract. And then in October and another time of the year,
It's usually
we get
September, February.
we had a $2,500 payment in October and $2,500 payment in February. To spend the flat amount, flat management amount for the past 3 years, I believe.
Yep.
And with the floods, Plainfield Arts did not put forth the management agreement in July. We did, I think, get it to the board around that. I think actually what we did is we got it to them and then they were too busy with the flood to deal with it.
Yeah.
And then you sent it again in September and we are just now getting around to it. So Plainfield Arts has been managing the town hall without a management agreement since July. And so you're asking for us to
Yes.
approve the same management agreement as last year with obviously new dates, but $5,000 to manage the town hall paid in 2 payments. One would be right away, I would imagine, and the other one would be in February.
Sure.
And just to clarify, this would be the line item for the town budget,
Mhm.
5,000
Yeah.
complete.
And so what we did last year in the town budget was say yes to $5,000,
Okay.
but then we never finalized this, and so that money was never sent, has never been sent to Plainfield Arts. Because we need the management contract.
One quick addition is that on the list that Keith just gave about the uses of this building. It is also now about to be designated our public shelter. So, under the stage, we built an additional floor down there and all of our shelter supplies and cots and everything are there. With the understanding that the next time we have a major disaster, we're going to try and support people here in this room. So it's yet another use of the building by the town.
Yes,
So, I was a little confused because I thought we were asked to renew a contract and then I didn't see a contract. And it sounded like we got background information, but now we came full circle and you're asking to have a contract approved. I haven't seen it.
No, we have already had that approved for the fiscal year, July of this year to July next year. It's what we're discussing now is just the payment on the contract.
in other words, the contract has been signed
I believe so.
by the board. Okay, yeah.
So Jim Bowles signed it before,
Yes.
so in June, okay,
Yes.
so you're just asking that that Plainfield Arts actually gets paid.
Right.
So
Okay.
does the treasurer have anything to say about this?
Send us an invoice.
Oh, okay. Yes,
If the contract's been signed and the appropriation's already been
It's-
made,
it's-
I'm not sure what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize because we had a treasurer who left us this year, so we're kind of transitioning, so I'm just kind of picking up the pieces. We have a young lady who's on the lady who's taking the treasurer stuff. So
Quickie question.
Yes,
It says public support, $1,180. How does it, what is that?
but that's membership fees, although I think.
Oh, okay,
I
that's
think
not,
I think we actually have more than that. Yeah, that's membership dues and donations.
memberships to Plainfield Arts.
To play the arts, right?
Yeah. Any other questions or?
Thank you, Keith.
Thoughts?
This is, the resource that this building is to the town is amazing. Thank you.
And, yeah, and Keith is on it. Go.
Got this for, just a quick question, is that contract that was signed, is that available to review before we get into the budget? Meetings?
I can share a copy of it. It doesn't have the actual physical signature on it, but I can, yeah, I can share that. I can share that with you right now.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Keith. Thanks for the work. Grants Committee. Karen, you still there?
Okay, I'm still here.
Excellent.
Great meeting, lots of good stuff tonight.
Yeah.
So Karen Hatcher, wanted to just give everybody, an update as to what's happening with the grants group. First thing is to just, make sure everyone knows that there is an informational webpage on the town website, under grants administration. So, every time we have a meeting, we are posting our minutes, and some general information is there about what work we're doing. So, and also how to contact me. So if anybody needs to check in on what's going on, that's a great place to do it. I also just want to remind folks that the group's mission is to identify, explore, and secure all available flood recovery funds to benefit the town. So that's our job. That's what we're working on. We keep working on. As you heard from Josh, we've been in the emergency repair phase of the work for the last many months, and happy to report that much of that work has been getting done and is almost done. Like Mill Street Bridge's temporary bridge went in and fully funded by VTrans. Excellent. We expect that should probably last us, 3 or 4 years, we hope. But that's done. A lot of the road repair work has been done. And as Josh may have mentioned earlier, that work is being done under the Federal Highway program because it's a connector road, and those repairs all made within 270 days, which is like April 5th. Anything done between now and then, or between the start and then, is 100% reimbursable. So as Josh mentioned, that is an excellent program for being able to get funds flowing back into our coffers to reimburse the expenses we've paid. And so in the context of the work, I would say the short-term work has been repair work, really, like it's all about how do we repair and how do we document all of the damages. That's kind of the immediate work that's been going on. And I have my notes in front of me, but I'm kind of jumping around. I'll just tell you that the damage inventory that we've been working on for the FEMA Public Assistance Grant has been the bulk of the efforts. And I really want to shout out to Josh and to Gary Smith for the amount of work they've done. Our consultants have been amazing. They came in last week. They were here 3 days. They were here for our scoping meeting with FEMA. We are well ahead of, as Josh said, most towns, and Michael said, like we've done a great job right from the beginning. We do expect that, a lot of that we'll be able to see money coming from FEMA as well. I think the work has been gathering everything we can get, so looking at all the damages, and so our consultant had a damage assessor come out last week and fly drones and really go and look with Michael Bingham at all the roads and all the damage. And they found another 30 items that could be part of the inventory when they went out together. So that work has been extensive. We are in what they call the 60-day window for FEMA PA right now. Clock started with the scoping meeting, but by the end of those 60 days, we will close out our damage inventory and then begin to complete what they call projects, which will allow us to submit for reimbursement from FEMA. So that work is all ongoing. It's a monster of a job, but it's being done really well, and our consultants have been amazing. The work going forward after emergency repair is really the next piece, which looks like scoping and engineering and really getting the technical work done so we can understand what our options are. As we mentioned a little bit earlier, it's like we don't even know what can possibly be done to reconstruct Brook Road, or what parts can be reconstructed, or what the future of that looks like. But we do know that we need engineering and we need science and we need all of that good information to be able and then we need numbers, right? We need to know what the costs will be. So that would be like the next chunk of work when we get past this emergency piece. And then beyond that, you know, as we're looking at resilience, that it's like when we have all that good information, then we can have community meetings and really start to talk about what's possible. So that's kind of context. And then I'll just say, just as reporting, what else? What else is there? So there's another grant that we've been working on that's called the Emergency Watershed Protection Grant. We identified with the help of George Springston, Charlie Cogbill, really want to appreciate them for their help. We visited 11 properties with the folks from USDA. We have 5 more that we're looking at, and this is all about whether you have structures in the way of immediate possible damage if there's another flood, if you would lose the structure. So they're coming out to do some evaluation, but I think so there's a 16 properties being looked at to see if there's a possibility of some funding coming in to help with those properties. So there's a lot going on. We're just, as the grants become available, as we hear about new funding sources and possibilities, we are, you know, hopping on those and figuring out how they might be of help. And in the meantime, we're just really focused right now on getting the FEMA damage inventory done and hopefully being able to take a bit of a breather over the holidays and, you know, but I think the planning work is going to be what comes next. And so we'll be engaged in that, but the team is amazing and everybody's doing great work. And that's all I really have for tonight.
That's great, Karen. Thanks so much. Karen was able to secure a $30,000 grant, which helps us pay for the consultants we have, who are amazing, who are helping us formulate the contracts for FEMA.
Is this the integrity group?
What's that?
That's the integrity group you're talking
Yes.
about?
Yeah, integrity
Yes.
group that we hired. And that's not, that's enough to get them started. So most of their funding is going to come from FEMA. But
Are there any questions?
What's that?
I just wonder if anybody has any questions for me.
Yeah, does anyone out there have a question?
Sounds like great work, Karen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karen, and the whole grant.
Karen,
Yeah,
Karen,
the
great
whole
job.
grants team.
Thank you for
Yeah,
everything you
it's
do.
been
Yeah,
great
you're
to
welcome.
see what.
You're welcome.
You're not.
Okay, thank you. Energy Coordinator Bob, is Bob on the line?
It's right there.
Bob, hey there. You're on. And I should
Great,
say
now I'm unmuted.
congratulations.
So you can hear me.
We can hear you.
I won't have to be a mime anymore here, right? So anyway, I have great news, and that's that, as you know, back in late October, I think we submitted the Municipal Energy Resilience Program Implementation Grant to Department of Buildings and General Services. And in the announcement email that we got around in November, we are pleased to announce that your application has been approved for funding in the amount of $306,180.60. So that's good news. There is a ask on that we have to review it, read all the legalese, and respond no later than December 16th. And I've been in touch with Bram, who is going to pass the information on to our new town treasurer and see who's going to sign it. I don't have any problem signing it myself. It says in the grant language that that I can sign it, or it could be another party. A couple of the highlights of it, there's a scope of the work that I forwarded to the select board a little bit ago. But anyway, it's weatherization and air sealing for all buildings. starting with the ones with the worst blower door and infrared camera views that rose to the level of attention. There is money in there for geothermal for the municipal office building and firehouse combined. And with that comes a low temperature emitter, such as a new radiant floor for the firehouse, which I understand is the concrete is in bad shape there. So that might be a fix on that.
Bob, to help, Bob, this is Carl, can we get a kind of an overview of which building, you're just into it, but we're talking about 5 buildings, did I understand? Town buildings?
Right.
3, okay. All right.
Yep. So I've got just a couple more bullet points here. There is funding for battery backups for all of the buildings. This is in lieu of or in partnership with any generators that may be out there. And EV chargers for suitable locations. And I'll talk a little bit about that because I want to update you on the EV charger as well. And there is a need for renewable generation, i.e. solar. One of the ideal places is the roof of the water and wastewater treatment building, due south exposure, and quite a bit of array there. And there's also a lot back of on School Street, back of the senior center, old schoolhouse that's owned by the town. And we looked at that before when we put in the park and ride solar, and that's also a good spot. There is a timeline on this that we need to move on because as of January 1st, group net metering is going away, which means that we could have a solar array we put up and it's totally islanded. The one on the wastewater treatment facility would not be, of course, that could feed into their overall electrical mix down there. But if we wanted to use the lot behind the school street, maybe for a couple of trackers, then that at least needs to be contracted before the first of the year. I'm sorry, but that's what happened with the renewable energy standard and pushback from the power companies on that seemed to have been the case. So those are the highlights. There are full details in the scope of the work, which is from the grant agreement. And if you look back a little bit in your email, you should be able to find that.
November 15th email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
November 15th email, Bob. Yep.
Sure.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay. And any questions on that?
Yeah, I have comments, question. One is hooray, fantastic. The $300,000 plus for town infrastructure to be better and better seeded into the future is just fantastic news. Thank you for driving that forward.
Great.
I wonder if we can make a motion that Bob can sign the MERP agreement to like make that go. That's a second wonder I have, if that's appropriate, and or may we? And third, I didn't follow that last piece about the lot on School Street. I didn't understand.
Yeah, there's the town owns land behind the old schoolhouse. And it's above where they have a little bit of a garden there. And there's also a right of way that goes up it's like a little driveway west side of the schoolhouse as it sits.
And what's needed there?
Well, it would be a great place for a solar array. But it's, the renewable energy standard says that the only way you can do group net metering is if the two properties are adjacent to each other. So in other words, you could put a solar array on the roof of the municipal office building and the firehouse could share it, but no other town entity can do that. So if you get the contract, I'll come up with a proposal, but if you can get a contract before January 1st, then that's grandfathered in so that it can't, they can't take it away from a group net metering thing.
Thank you for that proposal coming in.
Oh, Josh, yeah.
Yeah, this water commissioner. And, Bob, there is going to be some water line work going on in that location, the right of way for the water lines behind the old schoolhouse common. So, I just wanted to give you a heads up on that's coming up.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
It's a question for Josh, as treasurer. Wasn't sure which way your hat was turned right at the moment, but there you go. Bob Atchison was mentioning that there are probably some things to go over with you. Are you in the process of doing that at this point? Do you have any concerns about us going ahead and authorizing signing this?
I don't have any concerns.
Okay.
and do you have any concerns about Bob being authorized to sign?
No concerns on my part.
Okay,
Right.
so if you want to make a motion.
Make a motion to allow Bob Atchison to sign on the town's behalf acceptance of the MERP funds to the tune of $306,000.
I second that motion.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor, say aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Bob, you're authorized to sign that.
All right, great. And I will be putting together a little bit of a team with Josh, new treasurer, and Bram, and probably Sam Lash of the CVRPC, and we'll steer it from there.
Keep us in the loop if you would.
I will do
We're
that,
interested. Yep.
certainly. All right. And
Thank you for the effort.
Indeed.
okay. Yeah, one more quick thing. Mill
Yes.
Street Park charger replacement. I've got a quote from Clipper Creek for $678. That will be reimbursed to the tune of $750, which I'm hoping will be enough for Alana Norway to come up and change the breaker and make the final connection. I removed the old one. I can put in the new one, but I'd rather have it for town liabilities and whatever else. Let Alana do it. If there's
Is
no
there a time?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, finish with that. I was gonna ask if there's a time frame on it.
On
Or time
that, no,
expectation.
I'm ready to order, and I was also thinking about ordering an extra unit as part of the MERP grant. They were allowance for an electric vehicle charger at each of one of the 5 buildings. I would think it might be nice to have one at the municipal building and or at the park and ride.
Yeah.
But so I might order a couple of extra units and we can flesh out. It'll be a combination of where the electrical boxes are closest, where we have parking space, because they need to have a handicap access space adjacent to them as well.
Yep.
So, well, I think it's just a poking around and seeing where the service entrance panels are would help make one easier than another.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Bob.
All
Great
right.
work.
Thank you. Good to see you all.
Yep.
See
Uh,
your question, Dawn Venture, hand raised.
Hi, I just wanted to ask,
Oh,
I think.
sorry.
Did Bob say that there isn't a timeline on when the EV charger will be coming back?
I'm gonna order it tomorrow, so I would hope within two weeks we should have it. I'll have to schedule with Alana to see when she come up and do
Okay.
it.
Okay, thanks. Just because with winter and mud season coming up, I definitely need to use it. So thank you for taking care of that.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, we have an appointment, for, Beto Silva, sorry, to the Recreation and Public Arts Committee. Thank you for stepping up. We need to, appoint him to.
I
the
move
rec-
that we appoint Beto Silva to the Recreation and Public Arts Committee.
Second,
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
I'll abstain.
okay. Abstain from, Peter, he wasn't here. Uh, Approval of warrants, we have accounts payable of November 3rd, 2024. And payroll November 14 and 21, 2024. We just need to,
Motion to approve accounts payable for November 3rd, 2024, and payroll for November 14th and 21st, 2024.
second,
been approved and seconded, all those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we have to approve the draft minutes, which we received, for November 15th, 2024.
November 18th.
November 18th.
I'm sorry, 18th, 2024.
Move they be adopted.
Second,
All those in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So we have we're gonna call an executive session, which is a session with only the board and invited guests. And we will be discussing considering a labor relations issue. And so that's why it's an executive session. When we come out, we respond with whatever.
Yeah, we just have to say the words.
Yes, you want to,
Move to executive session pursuant to one VSA 313, A1B to consider labor relations with employees.
Point of order.
yes,
I see that the person who made a request through you to put an agenda item on
yes.
that was warned as a personnel grievance is here. And I'm wondering, before we vote on this, if we might clarify for him why we've changed the title of this.
Right,
And that is, we have not received a personnel grievance, so we cannot go into executive session to discuss the personnel grievance. There's a process by which someone under our personnel policy would file a grievance. However, I had also concerns, and there is a broader category under 313 one VSA 313, which is labor relations with employees, and so that's why we changed that.
effectively, we'll be discussing it at closed meeting. So,
Do we have to move to go into executive session?
yes,
All right. I move that we go into executive session pursuant to one VSA 313 A1B to consider labor relations with employees.
Second.
all those in favor, say aye.
aye.
Aye. So we will come out and announce whatever decision has been made, if there is one.
We'll have to move everyone to the wait.
And then we will, but that'll be the end of the meeting, so. There's no other items after that.
So folks, if you're off, you're welcome to leave. If you're on Zoom, I'm gonna move you all to the waiting room and then bring Patty back in for the conversation, so.
Haha.
Let's do it one by one.
But do I just go downstairs?
Yeah,
I'm gonna sign off, say goodnight. Thank you.
anybody who's not been invited into executive session cannot be in the room.
Yeah,
No, if
yeah.
you left, then we left. Everything
Yeah.
makes sense for us.
Thanks for coming.
What are you doing? What happened? Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Guess we'll make sure that's off.
Dave Dillard for-
Yes, so we've come out of the executive session meeting. As mentioned earlier, And we have no reporting to make on the meeting. So the next item is the date for the next select board meeting. We are having a budget meeting next Monday on the 2nd. And it will be at 6 o'clock. We hope, what I hope is to have the fire department, the road department here. And it was mentioned to have the office explaining what they would like for budget, have their budgets ready. So we have a sense of, if we have questions, we can ask them questions. And
You mean Bram and Josh as the treasurer and.
yeah, Bram and
Yeah.
Josh, basically. They cover all the bases, but Michael Bingham as well.
Well, no, it's not when you said the office, you meant the municipal staff.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, whatever their budget needs are is what
Yeah.
I'm after.
Got it.
So I haven't heard back from the fire department yet, but I did send Jonathan a note, and asked him to do that.
We said it's a budget meeting, but I know there's a request from the planning commission to warn a public hearing about the zoning bylaws changes that have to do with the
Oh,
town
yes,
expansion
this has to do,
project.
yes.
They also meet at the same time, at the 2nd, and I suggested.
It's at the same time?
I suggested in an email that they meet early and that they get us, because they haven't finalized their language.
Yeah, they
So
have
I
to
don't
do
think we
that.
can warn a public hearing on something that hasn't been finalized, so.
Yeah, and I feel uncomfortable responding to something we haven't seen.
We have, well, Will Colgan did send it
Yeah.
out, okay?
I saw that, yeah.
And I've had a couple of exchanges, email exchanges with Will, but, there's a 15-day notice period.
Mhm.
Which would put, if they can get it to the final version to us on the 2nd, and we can warn that 15 days, that puts us like December 17th. But if we wait until the 9th, that puts us to Christmas Eve,
Yeah,
and they're trying to get this adopted so that they can apply for this.
Well, 15 days is the minimum, so I mean, if we did it the 9th, we could warn it for 22 days. I mean, like, it doesn't have to be exactly 15 days, that's just the minimum.
Right.
but they're on a time crunch where they.
For early January, I'm just saying there's more, it's not like we would have to do it on Christmas Eve, we could
No,
do it the week
but-
after, we could do it the
Yes,
first week of
yes,
January.
But if you
Yes.
did it between Christmas and New Year's, you might hear howling about people,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
Well, there's a lot of people understand that there's a lot of things happening at once here.
Yeah.
I'm okay with using some of the time, but I hope it would be fairly brief, to approve that, the planning
the hearing.
commission's request.
Are we ready for a motion to adjourn?
So, yeah, we have our next meeting.
A week from today, 6 o'clock.
Yep,
Yeah, at the municipal building.
at the municipal building, yes, reminder.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay,
Second that.
and all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Dean, good luck with your grandma.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks all. Good night.
Yeah.
Milo got himself